Hi, my name's Ian, and welcome to the VP Toolkit workflow series for Unreal Engine 4.27. In this video, I'm going to go over a basic on-set or previs workflow for using in-camera VFX, Unreal Engine, and the VP Toolkit plugin. I'm going to add this old brick house to my project, and I already know that this level has a couple things that are not optimal. In another video, I'm going to show you how to bring all of this configuration from project to project if you're receiving multiple projects for production or for, whatever you're working on. But if you can bring them into an in-camera VFX template that you've already have built up, it may be easier to manage multiple levels in a single project than it would be to manage multiple projects. Okay, so once we've restarted the project, we can now see that our brick house is here, and we're going to check out the demonstration map. So there's a couple different ways that you can manage levels in this. You could bring all of your environments into a single nDisplay stage level like we made, or you can bring your nDisplay stage into different environments, and then it will kind of keep it a little more separate. I'm going to be bringing the nDisplay stage into the environment just to keep things simple for today, but very often am I bringing multiple environments into my nDisplay stage level so that I can load them and unload them with blueprints or some type of automated way. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go to our stages that we put in our folder, and then we're going to take the stage level and just drag that straight into here, and then set this to always loaded. So this is just a camera on a case, and I'll be adding some lights to it, and I'll talk to you about how that's going to affect the image once we find a couple locations. So once this is fired up, it's actually, you might not be able to see it, it's somewhere, but we're gonna change that. We're gonna find a new location for it. So depending upon your scene, of course, a lot of this should be thought out beforehand as much as possible. Let's find a good looking spot in this house. Let's say we wanted to shoot into this living room. I'm going to say I like a little parallax, so I'm going to try and put this to be fairly close to our screen so that when we move, we have 2 points of virtual parallax. So right here, I'm going to hit the snap stage to view button, and that's automatically going to snap the 0 point of our stage to this location, and you'll see that'll update in nDisplay as well. So maybe we are a little too much on that side, so I'm just going to go over here. Oh, we are snapping to the bush, and now we're starting to get something. So if you've brought this into a in-camera VFX project, you should be able to use the joystick if you'd like. And if some of these features don't update over your multi-user, just make sure that you hit save all every once in a while, and that'll push them through. You can see that updated. So now we're getting somewhere close where I can say, okay, this is starting to look like an image that we'd like. This is, maybe we have to give it a little more exposure in our scene. So let's say that this is going to be our first shot. So the first thing you want to do is drop a location marker. So I'm going to say this is location 1, and then let's just say that for this product shoot, this is scene 1, and then also there's like a shot at the end, which is scene 5 or shot 5 that we're going to have to shoot at this spot. And then I'm just going to say looking into living room, and then add that as a location. And you can see a little location dropped here. It's lens flaring because we have some issues with this level that we'll go over in a minute. And that will be our first location. And then now our camera, where that is at, we can actually get a fairly true representation. If you don't want the Frustum camera to see the nDisplay config preview, which I often do not want to see it, I'd click on the nDisplay config, which you can actually, there's a hotkey for it right here. And then I hit actor hidden in game. So now we should have the same view as our Frustum camera. They should both be displaying almost the same exact thing. It may be a little off, of course, with your field of view. I think we have the field of view larger for the virtual camera. So what we're going to do now, so once you have that, we can adjust some camera settings here. Maybe we want to play with the exposure. Maybe we want to try this a little brighter. Here's where I like to go to false color. There's also a false color built in that you can see here. And then sometimes it doesn't go unless you actually go in here and click it down for some reason. So now you can see to the Frustum camera, this is really bright, and that's not registering. It's registering close to that, but not the same on our actual camera. So we're going to bring that down a little bit. I'm going to bring that down in brightness. So I already can tell that there's a bunch of issues in this level. We have lens flares, which are not going to show up very well through the virtual camera. So the first thing I like to do once I get into a level and I get positioned is go through and zero out the post-processing volume. So if there's bloom, we're going to get rid of all that. The exposure compensation, I generally like to have on exposure basic, and then I set the min to 1 and the max to 1, and then get rid of these speed ups. And then we can adjust the exposure to actually get the results that we'd like. And it won't auto change on us. Chromatic aberration, no, that will do nothing but hurt your image. We just want to make sure. Lens flare, I actually will deselect these and then set lens flare to 0.0. And then you can also do that with the bloom. Because if you have any other things in the scene giving you lens flares, a lot of times this will just zero them out. And we make sure there's no vignetting because we don't want darker images. And then we go into temperature. Honestly, temperature looked okay to me, so okay, so now we're getting similar results from what we see here to camera. Now we're starting to get a background that looks realistic. And this is, you have to fine tune it, you know, you have to play around with it, and it takes time to understand these different components. So another thing that I'm going to do is I like to make the in-camera Frustum blur out so that we can check and see if everything is rendering properly if we wanted to add depth of field. So if I set this to 0, you can tell that this, you can tell that the curtain is still in focus. And I'll show you how to fix that. So if we go to the curtain and we find it, and then we find the material, we go to the material, And then we're going to go to this master translucent fabric. And then I'm just going to search for render after DOF. And then deselect that, apply, save. And then when I come back out here, check now. Now it's rendering out of focus. And then you can see in our nDisplay, it translates it as well. So that's one rendering issue that we have here. Another thing that I've found with this level for personal taste is the way that the lighting is controlled outside of the level. It's actually all done through a sky mesh and a skylight and this sky sphere. So this makes it so you have a lot of moving parts here. One thing that I wanted throughout this process when I was playing with this was I wanted the nice shadows inside of the skylight coming through. You can see they're baked against the wall. It looks very nice. You know, this is well done. This looks fairly realistic. But when I look out the window, my highlights on the ground, let me see if I can find a good way to show. So my highlights on the ground here are actually brighter than what I'm seeing in the sky. And that wouldn't be the case. The sky is usually very bright, especially if you're shooting a scene like this. So you want it to render realistically from that shot. So I'm actually going to go into this material, and there's a emissive value here. And I'm just going to put that to 1 and then apply and save. And then you can see behind me how much brighter the window got. And we'll take a look at that. You can see it's much brighter. It's kind of washed out, so maybe from other shots it won't look as accurate. See that there, I mean, I could go to probably try something drastic here. We'll go to 5. And then now it's starting to look more realistic, like we're actually looking outside. And we'll check that through the frustum. And you can see how much brighter that is in contrast to the inside. That's one of the biggest things that I've seen people have problems with, is the sky has to render much brighter than, or around the same brightness as your highlights, or it won't look real. So once I've set that, maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple lights to this scene. I'm going to be using just a couple small aperture MCs, and they will be kind of accent lights. I've put this tape around them so that they don't spill as much onto my backdrop and bring up the shadows. I've already got a lot of light spilling in here because of my podcasting light, and so I'm going to show you once we add some lights to this scene and start kind of mixing that in. Now, this is definitely not something, we're starting to look okay, but definitely we would want to control the light here, and we would want to make it so that our shadows register more as shadow data, where right now they're just very lit with the lights that I have around the room that are lighting me. So I'm going to put the focus back, something that's appropriate. I generally like to have the focus set to the distance of the mesh from the camera. So that would kind of be the distance from the camera to the screen. So I'm just going to guess right now and say that that is 200 centimeters. And then that's going to put the scene kind of in focus. And then now we can use, we also have control over it here on the panel. It's a little jumpy sometimes. So I'm going to leave that at 200, and then I can control how much this depth of field is after that with the aperture. So I can control how much it falls off after that. And what we're doing is we're trying to let the lens handle the depth of field from the camera to the wall. And then we're using the virtual field, depth of field starting at the wall and then controlling its fall off after that with the f-stop. So I'm going to put this to 1.8. It's fairly out of focus, but I'm using a 50 millimeter close up, and so my fall off would probably be fairly heavy, but it may be a little too much looking in camera. Okay, so after playing around with the exposure a little bit, and also something that I like to play with here is the toe, which by default it's set at 0.45, and you can see that it kind of starts to crush the shadows. If you make it more drastic, it will crush them even more, and then it makes the image flatter as you take it back. And what it's doing is it's lifting the shadows and giving you that shadow data. I actually really like to open this up a little bit, so 0.45 or 0.40, and you can see through the image that it starts to reveal more shadow data. So as you bring your image a little darker, we'll bring this a little darker, it may still have, bring it to 2, it will still have that information in the shadows virtually, and it will be putting them out there, but it really depends upon how much light you have spilling on the wall, whether or not there's going to be rendering as shadows or not. This at 2.5. And so now that I'm fairly happy with the look of this, I'm actually going to create a shot reference. So I'm going to name this 1A because this will be our first shot of our scene. And, you know, you can name it whatever you'd like. Generally, I keep it short because, and I go by actual shot listing systems. So notes, I'll say camera shot. And then I'm going to put, you may not always be able to do this, but I'm going to put my camera settings in here. So now I can add that shot. And now we're saving those settings, and then we're making a reference shot. So now I can always click back on this and be able to see what I was looking at. And for exposure reasons and for rendering reasons, you can't always go off of the nDisplay preview here. I usually recommend to set the nDisplay to be hidden in game. And that way, when you're looking through your Frustum camera, you know, you're really trying to match the Frustum camera with the projector screen and back and forth. It's your best way of being able to see what the image is going to be before it goes out to your processors. Okay, so now I'm going to find another shot. So maybe I like this kitchen here. I'm going to hit my snap tool, bring the kitchen to me, and actually I do like the look of that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to slightly adjust it, and I'm going to manually adjust this. Use our quick select tool to select the stage, and then we can move it around here, and if you press spacebar, they'll change from location to rotation, and I think something like that. Okay, so I like the way that looks in camera. Once we've set the position, we can say, okay, this is a good spot for our screen. And then I'm going to name this location 2. And then this will be shot 2. And then as notes, I'm going to say, looking into windows in kitchen. And then add that location. Okay, so now I'm going to add a shot reference. And so we've already got the information here from the last shot. And I'm just going to go 2 and then camera shot. And we are at the same settings on camera. And then I'm just going to write kitchen close up. And you can see what location marker we're at. and then just add that. And then now if I want to look back at my other shot, I can just click here and then I can look at this shot. So what I'm actually going to do now is, let's say I set that shot a little prematurely. So I'm going to adjust some of the virtual settings of that camera. So we'll go back to that. Maybe I want it to be darker. Okay, so now that we've pushed the changes through, we should be able to make adjustments and them show up live now. So if I wanted to make this kitchen feel more like the middle of the day, maybe we go for a higher exposure. I actually don't like the lighting in here. Naturally, lights would be outside and there wouldn't be light spilling onto these areas. They would be in shadow with just bounce light from the other side of the room hitting them. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration when it comes to building levels and making them look realistic. So now that we've dialed in this shot, I'm going to just update camera 2. And it's overwrite shot 2 settings. Do we want to update the location? No, my camera hasn't moved, so I don't need to update the location. And just in case, if you have it at a different location, you might want to know that the shot is at this location and we're currently at this location. But I'm going to choose to overwrite these settings. And then now number 2 is going to have our current camera settings. So now let's say we want to jump back to our original shot. So our living room shot. So if you come over to the locations and then you hit load shot, it will automatically snap you back over here. And then now our camera settings are not where they were. So we can go up to our shot that we had here and then load shot settings and then load that. Now our frustum is back to exactly where it was settings wise. And then we'll just go back to the kitchen real quick and load number 2. And we are back in the kitchen setup. So that's a general walkthrough of a workflow with the VP Toolkit plugin. I'm going to get some shots of this scene and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching, and if you've liked this video and would like to see more content, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.